Welcome back to the Social Seller Podcast with Conor Paulsen, where we interview the world's highest quality communicators, professionals, business owners, creatives, and everything in between. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're a high quality communicator, there's a good chance you're living a lot happier life, but you're also bringing those opportunities into your life almost like a magnet. My guarantee is that on this show, we only interview people that I, one, look up to, and two, that I know are going to continue to kill the game for years to come, and I want to make sure they're on your radar. But what I've learned is by asking the best questions, we get the best responses, and that's what the highest quality communicators, our social sellers, are all about. Let's hop inside to the Social Seller Podcast. Happy Friday. Welcome back. Evonna and I have some value for you before the weekend and wanted to make sure we could provide it. Now, not only did Evonna grow up and get some of the coolest education coming from Stanford, gets to do some of the absolute coolest things. And as a business owner, I realized that what she does is almost like a magician. And it's an area that doesn't get the appeal, but it's the area that helps companies grow efficiently and effectively. And this is a firsthand example at Uptown Creation, and our B2B sales development company. Evonna and I have chatted since the beginning of the year. We met on LinkedIn, and that's why it's so timely that we wanted to go live on LinkedIn together. She is a systems expert consulting for some of the absolute coolest companies in the world, innovative companies that are changing the way business has been done and how it's going to be done in the future. Now, from small to medium to large to publicly traded, she's done it all. She's seen it all. My biggest thing is I wish I would have adopted her beliefs sooner. I had read about systems, operations, and how critical they were for any company or organization that wanted to grow. Now, my best guess is if you're listening in, you probably want growth in your personal life, professional life too. Evonna, thank you so much for being here. And I can't believe you're so down to just hop on and provide value. You're currently due like in the next week or so, right? Like it could be any day. This could be on LinkedIn, and that would probably be the first LinkedIn Live ever. That'd be wild. Just to hop right in, I would love to hear how important systems are, in your life. Let's talk to someone that, just to start, to someone that might not implement them to the capacity, right? Like I explained when we were in the meeting room before this, we had a CRM, but that didn't mean our systems were in place. And it was until we really built them out, and it took years to do. And then all of a sudden, magically, that was the exact timing that our company started to accelerate in growth. Evonna, again, thanks for being here. Do you have a story to just kind of hit off with any recent conversations or how you've maybe helped a recent client implement some of these systems?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, I would give the example of I remember in the waiting room, we were saying before that, there's two ways that I approach this question in particular, whether it's a products-based company or a service-driven company. So I'll give the example of the service-driven company because I think that'll be most helpful to people who may be watching. We worked with a company out of North Carolina where it was pretty evident that the CEO and founder was doing a lot of the lead generation and then just connecting with those leads herself. And so she came to me when she got to the point where she was the bottleneck, and she was in the process of staffing up her team, but she wasn't quite sure what to offboard to other people. And she also had this belief at the time that, there were some things that she could only she could do. No one else could do it. No one else could touch it. It had to be her. And so, as a business owner myself, I find that that's, rarely true. In reality, it's typically something that's, more emotional, that's driving that type of choice. And so we essentially, were able to work through that. And the root cause ended up being that she was really reluctant to hand off anything else because she was worried about how that person would represent her brand. She was fine having people do work behind the scenes where they're not really interacting with, her potential clients, her future clients. But, this is a brand she's built, a brand she cares about, and it's a representation of her at the end of the day. And so she was very reluctant to introduce what she saw as a potential risk with someone else being the first point of contact with people who are going to be, working with her and then telling other people about their experience working with her. And so what we were able to do was we were able to automate some of her interactions with her early leads. We were able to hand off some of those interactions that weren't automated to other people on her staff. She has an administrator on her staff now who can handle those things, and it basically allowed her to rapidly serve a much larger audience, because instead of having one person who is now responsible for getting on the phone when these leads come through, or just having referrals and then being responsible for reaching out to them personally in her own time, she basically had a stream of incoming leads that they would get to her at the point that they needed to get to her, where she was the person to take it forward. Not at the very beginning where there's a little bit of legwork to even qualify these leads or figure out what they want or figure out how best to help them. And after working with her, she saw significant revenue gains within the first 4.5 weeks of being able to implement some of these systems. So for her, this was game changing, because she got to a place where she felt like she was addressing her pain point, and she also got to a place where she was able to serve a larger audience, which is as a business owner, you want to grow, you want to scale. So I would say that's a good example.
Evonna, thank you so much for sharing that. There's so many learning lessons within that, right? Let's unpack a couple. First off, I think it fits the basic filter of, if anyone wants their organization to grow, or let's say you're a salesperson, a SDR, BDR, right? And you want your professional career to continue to grow. It doesn't matter what degree of professional, having these systems in our personal and professional life just increases efficiency, right? And I think what it also starts to do, and what it's done for me, right? Because I read all the books through college and I knew I needed them, but my mind didn't work like it. And it took me way too long, unfortunately, to hire an expert. It wasn't something my mind really could comprehend, right? It was like me getting on a flight that I didn't know where it was going, and I get off in Shanghai, and I'm trying to read a food menu like that. Doesn't work like that. Right. And we have a big saying, if you can't automate it, delegate it. Right. And delegate it to an expert is something we've continued to learn in the last couple of years. It's so important. And I think the base filter of that story is, you helped her. You didn't come in and change her organization from what she wanted. It's hers, and she wants it to be hers. You helped her create efficiency to save her time, that time into growing. Right. I love that. I'll keep it at that for that one point. And then the second one is the ability to hand things off, right, and delegate in life. And I see so many friends that are business owners, whether they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, that have that challenge at times. Now, I was more than happy and welcoming to it, because I just value the freedom and the time. And I realize a lot of other professionals are looking at it too. Without systems, none of this would be possible. If we didn't implement, and for us personally, right, we talked about our CRMs earlier in the waiting room. And, one of your baseline questions when you're talking to an organization is getting an understanding of their CRM. Would you go as far as saying, is a CRM for most businesses these days, is that kind of like the heart that like things break away from? Like systems, is that the heart of the majority of systems?
No, I would say no. And the reason why I'm going to say no is because I don't want to reinforce the belief that a lot of businesses that I've spoken to have. And it's that, if we implement, a piece of software or, this type of CRM system, we're good. Like, we don't need to do anything else. But for any system to be implemented well, or any process to persist and actually be helpful in your company, the real heart of it is the people interacting with it. And so if it doesn't work for them, if it's painful, if people don't want to use it, you have low adoption, then it's fundamentally broken. And that, can happen regardless of what tool you use. So I don't like to say that the actual tool itself is the heart of any particular system, it's always the people. It's always going to be the people who are driving it.
I love that. Evonna, you bring up another good point, because that was a big challenge when we did hire that expert 3 years ago and brought them onto the team. And she's actually a partner today. And it's so cool because that's how important it is, right? And Erin would spend so much time building these systems. We knew the importance, but we didn't realize that meant we had to do things a little bit differently. And there was a reason why, but in the moment we're like, it's a lot easier to just do what I did yesterday, right? And that's coming from like the sales background. And I can tell you, truthfully, there was it took time for the fulfillment team to all be on page 2, right? And once we adopted it, it all made sense. It really did. And it really, I had to go all the way in before I realized that it was saving me time. And I almost think that I was thinking in a selfish lens on life because I didn't want to adopt something new. And it was selfish because it was like, I'm comfortable doing what I did yesterday or last month. It worked 6 months ago, right? You hear that once in a while.
Right.
This is the steps that are necessary. And I love that you correct me, and you're absolutely right. CRM is not your solution. Now, that might be the heart of it, but when we first got, for us, again, it was HubSpot. Why did we choose HubSpot? We had bounced around. We had tried a few others, kind of like dipping our toes in. What is going to vibe for us? Because we communicate in our own ways. And HubSpot worked well because it allowed us to grow with it. We didn't have a crazy email size. But the thing is, like you said, it wasn't until this is 2 years in the making, right? So I want to also preface that. Like when we got HubSpot, this was 2-3 years in the making, and we're constantly building and adding on. But then it was email sequences, email templates, email onboarding scripts, to setting up forms so that everything was communicating, starting to learn about Zapier and how you can have your sales funnels to your cold calling list, to like what every aspect of your company kind of brought in together. And that's kind of why I mentioned like the CRM. That's my belief, but I'm an outsider talking to an expert, and that's you. How do you see that progression, or is there kind of like some baseline rules once a company or organization has adopted a CRM, and are there higher priority? Are you familiar? I'm sure you're familiar with the 80-20 rule. Are there kind of the 20% that provides 80% of the value when someone's considering a CRM?
Honestly, I don't think so. From my experience, there's so many options to choose from. And some are more robust than others. And so I think that the comfortability of your team with whatever system you choose is going to be the most important factor. Because if you choose, something that is really robust out of the box, but your team is, maybe less on the tech savvy side, but they, are just amazing at every other aspect of their jobs, and providing this level of friction for them is setting you up to have, a really rocky start to, this new flow that you're about to implement. So I think it varies too much for me to say that there's like a general, something that, covers 80 or 20% of what you'll need done.
Yeah. And I'm realizing that's the challenge when we communicate, because I completely agree. And there's just so many variables with so many industries, so many verticals, and just organizational models look so vastly different. I realize the importance. We needed it. And it's something that continues to always optimize. It's kind of like a living document, right? Because you'll build a system, you'll implement something, because based on where your company's at that day or that week, that month, that quarter, it makes the most logical sense based on the information you have, right? But that does not mean it's perfect 6 months from now. And so you're constantly optimizing. And for us, it was very important to have someone that was almost managing that full time. So when you're coming into an organization, and again, one thing that I really want to mention, and I give you the absolute most respect for it, I'm fortunate to talk to a lot of professionals, high-level coaches, consultants just like you. What separates you from all of the others that I speak to is how refined and specific the organizations you're going to help. And it comes down to your value offer, to exactly how you're going to help, even to the point that you're only going to, it takes you 6 to 8 weeks in an organization to get in, to implement, to help, and you're out, right? That's what fascinates me. What enables you as an expert to come into an organization that you don't know, and in 6 to 8 weeks help them become more efficient, and then that efficiency ultimately helps their company grow?
So first and foremost, we just talked about like, maintaining leads or generating leads. The first thing I start off with is an application process, because I think that, I need to be really comfortable working with this group, this business, this team, and, 100% confident that I can help them achieve results. And so there are certain things that I look for in the people that are reaching out that might need help. Unfortunately, I don't have the bandwidth to help every single person that comes across, and I also have been able to identify certain factors that are low indicators of our success in working together. And so I typically, weed that out from the beginning. That's step one. Step two is, during my process of, walking them through what it is that I do and how I do it, I make sure that they understand every step of the process. You mentioned we have different packages. We've worked really, really hard to kind of, break those out to provide value at, various levels that people are willing to engage with us. But they're, the smallest package, it might be the most attractive because it's the least amount of, resources being spent. But at the same time, that's not going to be a great package for number one, a team that is incredibly small and doesn't have the manpower to really, implement any of the things that we identify are problems, or the solutions that we identify to address their pain points. And then, that package is also not going to be suitable for, let's say you have a small team and the, founder of the team is the only one that, wants to engage with me. Like, they don't want me to engage with their team. They don't want me digging too deep. That's not going to be a great package, because that package is the audit, and it literally allows me to do a deep dive into your company and figure out what's working, what's not working, what do you currently have, where are the gaps, where are the areas of opportunity. And that requires, a little bit more engagement with more than just the person at the very top who has a very specific view of the company, and, the rest of their team who might have a completely different view of the company. And so I think it's, first making sure that this lead that is coming in is going to be a good fit, versus with what they're looking for, everything from, what their business does, where they currently are in terms of who they serve, and even their temperament. How do they respond to me asking potentially touchy questions? And then the second part is just making sure they understand what the offering is, how it's going to work, and how they can best show up and participate in their own success. And I think once we have those two elements established, it becomes pretty clear to both of us which is the best level to engage at. And I would say smaller companies are going to get the most bang for their buck if they engage in the second package, which is the audit plus the strategy plan. That's going to give them not only insight into what's going wrong, here are the areas of opportunities, these are the solutions to some of your pain points, but also just a step-by-step breakdown of how to address those pain points, exactly what you should implement where, at what point you should do training with which team, and that it's then up to them to do whatever, how to carry that plan out however they see fit in their organization. And then the third plan is the full package, where it's basically a done with you service, where of course we'll go through the audit. From the audit, we'll create the strategy plan. This is a collaborative experience where you'll give me feedback on what you see as feasible for your business within that strategy plan, and then we'll roll into implementation and training. And so as part of the implementation, I mentioned before that you want to make sure your team is on board, because that them adopting any of these systems that we're rolling out and any new processes is going to be vital to you seeing any results. You don't want the people who have been there and who may have implemented some of the processes previously that aren't working to feel disenfranchised, or like they're now just being cast off. You really want to, during the implementation phase, engage that team and allow them to take ownership of the new processes that are coming in. And that also allows your business to keep those processes running smoothly when I'm no longer there, which is the absolute goal. And so the last piece of that full package is also documentation. And so I think that's one of the pieces that people see as just being so boring and just so like cumbersome that they don't want to do it. Even a lot of really huge organizations that are household names that I've consulted for have not had robust documentation, or sometimes none at all. And so the documentation piece, I think, once a business has that, they really see the benefit of, oh, wow, like now, not only can we, do better with the things that were holding us back, we also have a jumping off point for the next time we need to iterate, or the next time we have a question about how something is done. Also, when you're bringing in new members, when you're onboarding, you have this set of documentation that makes it easy to hand off some of these processes. And so full circle, that it just solves so many problems and allows them to move forward with ease and, feel confident that this is something that they can now handle in-house. And if for some reason they're, not completely comfortable at the end of, 6 to 8 week period, there is the option to, continue to, work with me in a much smaller capacity on a monthly basis. But I find that by the end of the 8 weeks, a company might need one more month of support, but they're at that point, they're pretty much ready to go, and at least have these processes running in their organization before they feel like they need additional help.
Evonna, I love it. I love it. You just, in the most humble way, gave so much value away. And again, to just hit the nail on the head, what you're doing, what you're looking for, and you've done it in so many capacities. That's why I knew we needed to do this interview and share our conversation, because I haven't asked you the majority of these questions, right? I am learning so much right now. And this was my own misbelief. I thought this stuff was boring, like I said, when I first got into it. And now I realize, and like, as you can see this excitement, I get excited because I wish more people knew about this stuff too. And it might sound boring. I'm trying to think systems. What was the book? A mentor in college taught me, like, systems thinking or something. And it was so granular and so boring to read. And I got 3/4 of the way through it. And I realized, okay, this is mandatory. And then to bring it full circle, it's so exciting because this is literally, it was the missing component that took us to the next level. What you're explaining and how you serve are really like 3 to 5 steps to implementing, right? Just starting a CRM is not implementing a system, right? You added a CRM. Cool. Right? Now, the component is bringing an expert in. If you don't know this, that's what we did. And it's being able to first get an analysis of the team, of the organization, right? And it's so important that everyone's open to it. And I'm glad you share this, because this is a learning lesson for me. Like I said, I'm learning on these calls, and that's why I love the social seller interviews so much. What I'm realizing is we are very open internally, and we welcome growth, and we welcome that. We know that, yes, we did it this way a month ago, let alone 3 months ago, let alone a year ago. And yeah, it might have worked a year ago, but we're growing and we have to help a lot more people. So we're open to that. So every part of that is a necessity. And I realized if our operations team wasn't able to easily communicate with head of fulfillment and then sales and then, financials, like, none of this would make sense, right? Because if you don't have a good feel for it, and you might have that an individual it's very challenging to give up aspects of the company when you're really just trying to come in and serve them, to help them. And then the second step, right? So now that you have the analysis, these are maybe the weak spots, right? Or these are not weak spots, right? In leadership, we learn about how important, exactly. It's an opportunity, and a beautiful opportunity for growth is, all right, here's these areas. And the other cool thing is you're coming into an organization with outside eyes. I think it is a huge life hack, right? Because you can see it for what it is. You don't have an emotional bias. It's, all right, well, does this work? Does this, and it should come down to metrics if you're tracking well enough. And we haven't even talked about trackability, because that's what really sets this up for, 6 months, 12 months, when you re-engage with Evonna and come in and go, all right, we've learned a ton, our company's grown. Now we're ready to hit this next level. What we think we need to be doing these things. So it's being able to understand that, right? So critical that we do have these weak points, that we don't have everything figured out. And I think that's also a little bit of an ego check. If you can communicate with someone like you that knows you're coming in to help, and as a team, we want to serve our clients at the highest level. We want it. And then what I love the most is you also are there and you don't say you're going to implement it to the team, but it's a done with you. And that just shows me the level of professionalism that you have, the level of communication, but the level of results you get clients, right? Because it's never 100% on someone else, right? Any good partnership in life, right? Any good system in life, any good business, like there was work that went into it, right? Psychologists have proven the harder we work at something and create something, the more we enjoy it, right? So if we enjoy these things, I think it just makes so much sense to start looking into this. Wow, I'm trying to think of anything else to unpack in there, because who would have thought? You're the first guest we ever had 25 weeks, consecutive weeks in, that like could just zero it into that point, and I enjoy it. What are you excited for? Where do you see the direction and innovation? Do you want to say something before we go on?
Yeah, I was just going to touch on the fact that you said that, this is a partnership, and that's exactly why the consultancy is named the process partner, because at the end of the day, this is not, the process guru. This is not the process, tell you what to do. This is, your business is, a big part of your life. Even if, you don't have any ownership in the business, this is a job for you, like before your next stop. It's still such a huge part of your life that, we really pride ourselves on coming in and acting as your sounding board, your partner, your, person that you can trust with, some of the heavier stuff. Even the more emotional things that come up, we're all human. This is, again, the work that we do, means a lot to each of us in the way that we show up. And so I just wanted to highlight that, the name of the consultancy was super important. And I wanted it to convey this sense of we're right here with you. Like we're not going to just come in and breeze through and say, oh, this is all the stuff you need to fix, and why haven't you done it yet? And it's terrible. It's, we leave with a little more empathy than that, because we understand that, if you had the time or the bandwidth or the, steps in front of you, you likely would have already done it. So, we don't take our partnerships lightly, and, we show up with that mindset and that, leading with empathy to make sure that, it's a fruitful and a positive experience for everyone that we work with.
I love that. And I'm realizing the more and more in life, personal and professional, it's just always, it's got to be, it comes from both parties, right? It's both sides. And that's the only way to build sustainable long-term partnerships. And that's the name of the game. I know we're both in, right? It's one thing to have a client, but we want to continue to help, right? And scaling at the highest level and being able to come in and help isn't necessarily looking for how can I profit off of you the most? And like you had said, it's how can I come and serve you when you need it and get you to that next level? And then when you need me, give me a call when you're at that next level, right? And I love that belief, because it does take both parties to implement from the beginning, right? Is the team on board? Are they willing to communicate the challenges, their beliefs? How can we improve to the back end? And how are we going to grow this and create a sustainable future? What are you the most excited for? And just, being an expert and being in the know and having these certifications and being able to help so many organizations, you have a good grasp of that. Many of us professionals don't. Where do you see the direction of efficiency in business over the next couple of years or even 5 years?
I think right now there's still a disconnect between kind of what we were talking about earlier, where efficiency right now is still just seen as like, oh, well, what tool can we implement and what's going to work the fastest?
Chrome extension. Yeah.
So I think that there's still a disconnect between that being a solution in its own right to just empowering the people who are participating in these processes more fully. And so I think that there's a lot of room for opportunity in that regard. But I do think, given the fact that, more and more businesses are becoming more, aware of, what drives their workforce, I do think we'll get to that sweet spot sooner rather than later. So I'm super excited to see, how the conversation around driving efficiency in an organization changes.
I love it. And it makes me excited for the future. And my theory is very similar to Dr. Joe Dispenza's, but if you have an excitement for the future, I think it's one of the best states to live life in. And you have me excited for the future, for our business, for everyone's company, and for any professional listening in. Evonna, for anyone, any professional, whether they're listening to this today live on a Friday afternoon, providing that value before the weekend, how do people get in contact with you, or what's the best place for them to find you?
You can, of course, find me on LinkedIn, or you can visit our website for more information. Our website is www.theprocesspartner.com.
Theprocesspartner.com.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. And we'll make sure to put that in the description. Thank you, Evonna. Again, I know personally and professionally, you are crazy busy. You are wearing more hats than the majority of us combined. Thank you. And I hope you have an awesome Friday.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and have a great weekend.